Hi there! Welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. In the last episode, we managed to prove that Shishiru Jigoko was in fact the murderer of Tobias Gregson, and therefore Brock should be found completely innocent, but Kazuma just can't let it go, man. And now he wants us to talk to Brock, and we got some more testimony out of him, and now we're gonna have to cross-examine and figure out, again, I don't think he's lying. Probably. Like, again, I sincerely doubt that he really is the Reaper, because just knowing how these games work and, you know, how that stuff goes, like, it just wouldn't make sense, but we're gonna have to fucking sort through the murk and the molasses of this testimony and, you know, find the truth somewhere in the middle. So yeah, let's begin by pressing everything, as we like to do.
Hold it!
Also, I get to obliterate my throat by doing this, this voice for Brock, which admittedly has not always been 100% consistent, but yeah. So you're not what the general public refer to as the infamous Reaper of the Bailey. Exactly. Don't imagine for the moment that the court will be satisfied with a one-word answer on this. I realize that. If you're intending to comment on every sentence, this could take a while, Kazuma. Didn't you find it disturbing, though, that one by one, defendants who'd been acquitted after your unsuccessful prosecution were killed? Let me answer that question by posing another. If, one by one, defendants who'd been acquitted after your successful defense were killed, would you find that disturbing? Disturbing? I couldn't possibly say how that would make me feel with a one-word answer like that. Well, technically, Ryunosuke, the first defendant that you found innocent did end up finding himself killed, so, I mean, you're not completely... I imagine you have an idea of how it might feel. Exactly. Well, that told me. But even though I'm not the Reaper, that doesn't mean that I ignored all the hearsay. I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement. You say, for years. How long exactly? Since the very first time the Reaper's influence was felt in this courtroom. 10 years ago now. And your investigations led you somehow to Inspector Gregson, you're saying? I didn't want to believe it. He was a personal acquaintance. We'd worked on cases together in the past. A friend, even? It felt like a betrayal, but I demanded permission to search his office at the Yard without his knowledge. Which is when you found his secret notebook, is it? It's when I first learned of the location he'd noted only as Grouse, and the appointment at 5 p.m. on the 31st. Though I didn't know the significance of those details at the time. So now we're at the nub of the matter. As it turns out, the significance for me personally was very unfortunate. That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day, and how I came to discover the body. Right. But why did you go to that specific location? I thought that if it was the Reaper's headquarters, then by turning up there at 5 o'clock, I would catch whoever was involved red-handed. Sadly, all that was awaiting me was the inspector's corpse. Yes, even though it wasn't designed for you, you walked straight into the trap set by Jigoko. Exactly. Jigoko had intended to implicate Hugh Boone, but unhappily for me, I arrived at scene first. Ha! A ridiculously careless blunder. Moved on to just throwing insults around, I see then, Cosima. Think what you will. It doesn't change the truth. The point is, no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson.
Hold it!
I mean, there is a link between you and Inspector Gregson, though. Of course, we were close acquaintances. We'd worked on numerous cases together. I considered the man to be a mentor of sorts. He taught me a number of important lessons. He did? Such as what? Where to buy good fish and chips, and such like. Well, that was convincing. Dr. Wilson was a coroner, of course, but that was some time in the past. And in any case, I understand it was several years ago now that he was invited to work at a Japanese university. That's right. He was a visiting professor at the Imperial Yume University in Tokyo. It should be unambiguously clear then, that no link exists between myself and him. In other words, I had no motive for sending some assassin across the oceans to kill the man. It sounds plausible enough, and I want to believe it, but something about this just doesn't quite sit right with me. Yeah, it doesn't quite sit right with me either, to be honest. Clearly, therefore, there's... yeah, okay.
Hold it!
Certainly as it stands, there's no evidence to suggest that you concocted this...
Objection!
But as it stands, we have only the accused's insistence of his innocence. Sorry? Perhaps there is some reason that would explain why he masterminded the assassin exchange. And if a reason could be established later in these proceedings, then the accused's claim and his testimony that he wasn't involved would amount to perjury. Well, yes, that's true, but clearly Cosima-sama intends to identify a reason and use it to make his case. So if we don't identify something first, he'll gain the advantage. This could be dangerous. A convincing testimony by Lord Van Zykes. Certainly, with no apparent connection between the three men, there's no way to establish a motive. The testimony seems unassailable as far as I can see. Oh dear me, what a bleak expression. I agree. There doesn't appear to be any particular link between them at first glance, but with the inclusion of one other person, I must be overthinking it, surely. Another person, Mr. Naruhodo? I need to think back over all the information we've gleaned so far. Alright, and I'll review my notes about the case and all the evidence in the court record. Could it be that Lord Van Zykes has something to hide after all? There is one point that is definitely sticking in my mind. I believe if we consider this, the autopsy report that was signed by Dr. Wilson for old Clint back in the day. Death from a single stab wound to the heart, other superficial external wounds indicative of a duel, recent scarlet ink stains visible on the little and right fingers of the right hand, but no document in the corresponding ink was found. Vital evidence was recovered from the victim's stomach during autopsy. Credit to Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly for the autopsy procedure. No internal trauma noted anywhere in the body. Right. Well, I think that's kind of obvious, right? Even though, I mean, Barack was not involved in the autopsy report here, but the fact that it was his brother that was being autopsied, and Dr. Wilson signed, or carried out, well, he signed the report, even though he didn't actually, wait, oh. Well, let me make sure I got that right. So it's signed by Dr. Wilson, who carried out the procedure, but it was Mikoto who actually wrote the details. So either way, Dr. Wilson did the autopsy for Clint Van Zeeks. Gregson was there, specifically, who had petitioned so doggedly for the autopsy procedure. Yeah, I don't know if I call it, it's a bit tenuous, but there's a thread between Brock's brother, Dr. Wilson, and also Gregson.
Objection!
So I think we're going to explore that a little bit further. What is this? An autopsy report? Wait, this is 10 years old. From the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. What? My brother's autopsy report? I'm pleased to see the defense doesn't intend to run from the undeniable truth. I mean, I'm not exactly sure why this equals him wanting to kill Dr. Wilson, but sure, I guess we'll go along with it for now. Order in court. What reason do you have for presenting a 10-year-old autopsy report here, counsel? This, the autopsy report of the professor's final victim, is an indelible link between Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson, and the defendant. Not that accursed name again. The professor. I personally researched all the court records relating to that case. I know that at the time, autopsy was considered sacrilege to the victim's souls. And for a member of the aristocracy like Lord Clint Van Zeeks, it was unthinkable. But someone implored the powers that be to allow the autopsy to go ahead. Inspector Gregson. He declared that he was certain he would obtain conclusive proof from the procedure. And it was Dr. Wilson who conducted the autopsy. His signature is clearly visible in the documents. As promised by Gregson, the autopsy did indeed produce evidence. Evidence that conclusively proved that Genshin Asogi was guilty of the murders. In my brother's dying moments, he mustered all his remaining strength to leave that vital clue behind. Indeed. That was the key to indicting the professor for his crimes, and the conclusive evidence that convicted him. It enabled Lord Van Zeeks here to avenge his brother's senseless death with a marvelous victory in court. A marvelous victory, was it? I wonder if that's really true. What? Could the same be said if it turned out that the key piece of evidence in question was, in fact, fabricated? If the inspector, the coroner, and the prosecutor all colluded together to cast an innocent Japanese man as a mass murderer and send him to his death. Okay, now I see what you're getting at. Since Brock did prosecute that case that led to Genshin's conviction, that would in fact be the more tight thread that connects those three together. But also, again, like, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, and I don't expect these games to be a realistic portrayal of the law regardless, but I feel like Kazuma has far too much personal stakes in this case and the surrounding circumstances behind it for him to be able to unbiasedly, without bias, prosecute this case. Like, he clearly fucking has a problem with him, with Barack, because he feels like, he was responsible for, prosecuting his father and unjustly, calling him a mass murderer and whatnot. And I mean, yeah, I get it. Like, I understand Kazuma's, feelings and whatnot, but again, it just feels like a conflict of interest, man. And outrageous! And now, 10 years later, for some reason, the secret has been threatened and needs protected. which is why the inspector and the coroner had to be silenced, isn't it? By someone in power in Japan and in Britain, using the two killers recruited for the assassin exchange. Again, I don't think Barack is quite that powerful. Like, again, let's just double check. Like, he's just a prosecutor. Like, he's not, like, the chief prosecutor. He's not, like, you know, an all-powerful force that he can be telling Japanese people in Japan about, you know, to go murder people, you know? Order! Order at once! 10 years ago now, my father was convicted in this very courtroom as a mass murderer, to be sentenced to death. But it was all a sham, and I swore to myself that I'd prove it, which is why I had to come to Britain, whatever the cost. Man, look at fucking Barack, keeping things so, calm and composed. You'll have to forgive me. You'll have to forgive me if I feel compelled to toast this vengeful Niponese's tenacity of purpose here. I mean, it's the tenacity of purpose of getting your ass killed, my guys. So, you know, kudos for you for keeping such a cool head about things. However, he who fails to quash his emotions in the courtroom has failed as a lawyer. I mean, yeah, that's pretty accurate, I would say. Like I said, I feel like Cosmo is blinded by his rage and his hatred. Come on, Cosmo! You know this won't wash! You're claiming your father was misrepresented in a trial that took place a whole decade ago. You must see that without evidence, that's nothing more than a wild accusation. As it happens, I have evidence. What? As the court has heard, I crossed the channel to France with Gregson on the 31st. I went with him on the pretext of being the assassin recruited to kill Sashiro Jigoko. But my true intentions were to make the inspector tell me the truth. What truth? The truth about the evidence, and he acknowledged what I'd already deduced. There's a closely guarded secret about what went on in that autopsy 10 years ago. What? A secret? I know nothing of any secret. While we waited for my supposed mark in Jigoko's cabin, I drew my clan's illustrious sword, Karuma, before the inspector's eyes. He very quickly understood what my true motive was. Oh god, now I have to do Gregson's voice again after all this time. I definitely don't remember that one very well. Right. I see. No. Damn it. Right. I see. You're that Asodi. No, that's not the... No, obviously, he's not a fucking hick. Honestly, I don't know if I actually had a super consistent voice for Gregson either, to be honest. Right, I see. You're that Asoki's young lad, are ya? And what? You're gonna cut me down with that thing? Is that it? That will very much depend on the answers you give to my questions. I want to know what really happened 10 years ago. The truth. That's all. Before we get into it, let me make one thing clear. I still believe your father was the professor. There's no doubt in my mind. But unfortunately, back then, we didn't have the evidence we needed to make the crime stick. God dang it. See, I keep lapsing into the Cosmo voice. Because, like, I don't know, I guess this is my limited range is failing me. But unfortunately, back then, we didn't have the evidence we needed to make the crime stick. So, you admit it then. The evidence used in my father's trial was fabricated. It was for the good of the country. Anyway, I was just following orders. Orders? What exactly did you do? Spike! I'm not saying another word. Even if your life depends on it. Yeah, that's right. Even then. Jeez. So that's when the tip of the sword broke. Oh, Kazuma-sama. If the results of Clint Van Zyke's autopsy were fabricated, then the investigating officer, Gregson, and the late coroner, Wilson, must have known about it. And they can only have been ordered to pervert the course of justice in that way by one man. The man leading the case for the prosecution, Barack Van Zyke. In other words, the defendant did have cause to organize this exchange of assassins. Did he though? Like, why would he feel the need to silence both Gregson and Wilson 10 years after the fact? Like, I think that's something he would have done before, like, you know, not long after it originally happened then, you know? I don't know, maybe Cosmo will explain. Exactly. And as was established earlier, it has to have been the Reaper himself who liaised with Jigoko in Japan to arrange the exchange. So it follows that the Reaper's true identity can only be that of the man who stands accused in this courtroom today, Barack Van Zyke. Okay, again. Okay, it's coming together a little bit clearer now, but surely we can, like, verify this by wondering if Barack has ever even been to Japan, because, like, surely there would be records of that, right? I mean, if there's records of Kazuma, you know, getting on board and then getting off board the fucking SS Grouse, then surely any kind of ship or transportation that Barack needed to go to Japan, there would be records of that, right? Can we prove that Barack has ever even been to Japan in his entire life? Because somehow I don't think there is. Mr. Kazuma, just throwing it out there. So again, how would he have been able to liaison with Jigoko in Japan? Just again, I know it's not like the relevant point here, but still.
Objection!
Kazuma Sugi. What? What you've just told the court. Are you absolutely certain of your facts? Did Gregson really fabricate evidence for that trial 10 years ago? Also, again, we only have Kazuma's word that conversation even took place. Like, and it's not like Gregson's going to be able to verify that he indeed told Kazuma that. I heard it with my own ears. His shameful admission. In that case, I know the name of the Reaper. Oh. Oh, do you now? What? What? Lord Van Zyke. I gave no such orders. I know that for certain. Which narrows down the remaining possibilities to one. If Lord Van Zyke isn't the one behind all this, then yes, there's only one other person who could have done something like that. I believe I know who it is too. Yo! I just had a feeling this name was going to come up. The true identity of the infamous Reaper of the Bailey is... Susato Mikotoba. Boom. It was you all along, Susato. You organized all this, starting when you were 6 years old, and you've been masterminding every fucking murder ever since. I can't believe it. No, actually, no, sorry. I was wrong. It was you, Iris. You organized the Reaper of the Bailey. You are the Reaper of the Bailey. Ever since you were born, you've been a criminal mastermind. I just know it. But no, obviously, that's not. It wasn't them. Okay, I know. TBH, there's really only one person it could realistically be, considering what we know about the Reaper. But at the same time, I'm gonna have to. This is a very climactic moment I can feel in the progression of how this case is gonna go, and I feel like if I point this out and then I'm gonna have to cut things off soon enough anyway. So yeah, I'll wrap things up. It'll be a little bit of a shorter episode, which will contrast with the admittedly a little longer than usual episode last time. So yeah, in the next episode, we are gonna finger the true Reaper of the Bailey once and for all. And I feel like once we drop that bomb, shit's gonna get real funky, real fast. But until then, I'll see you around.